And then Laura, will you do introductions while I navigate to live?
I will.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we are thrilled that you could join us this morning for coffee and conversation. We're going to hear from our guest speaker in just a little bit, Emily Fabiano. I think you're joining us from Columbus, correct, Emily?
I live in Cincinnati, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, about TechCred, which is a great program that was implemented a little over a year ago. And, we have been promoting it, but we know that there's a lot more opportunity, I think, than what our local members have taken advantage of. So anyway, I'm Dan Bates, and let me give you a little bit of how this is going to work. Those of you who are joining us on Zoom, you can ask questions directly of the speaker. If you are joining us on Facebook Live, you'll type in your questions and Tiffany will then repeat them to the guest speaker so she can answer them. So everybody gets to participate, whether you're on Zoom or you're on Facebook Live. So again, thank you for joining us this morning. You know who I am, and now Laura is going to find out who all of you are.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Glad you all could join us today. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. So we're going to go around the screen. If you could tell me your name and what company you're with, we will, and then we'll get back to Emily and Julia at the end. Jill, you will be our first one today.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jill Cates from Easter Seals Career Connection.
Nancy.
Nancy O'Neill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right, then we've got Hamilton. I'm sure that's probably not your first name, right?
No, it's Christina, and I'm with the dry cleaning shop on the Court Street.
Oh, welcome, Christina. It's nice to meet you.
I'm excited.
Yay! Well, we're glad to get you involved. And then we've got Jackie down here.
Yes, I'm Jackie Webb. I'm from Miami University Regionals. I'm at the Hamilton campus today.
Oh, wonderful. Glad to see you in the office.
Yes.
And then Jared.
Jared Dennison from Ohio Credit Union.
All right. And then Emily, I guess Tiffany, would you introduce yourself?
I am Tiffany with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right. Emily and Julia, we'll let you do a little introduction and kick it off.
Excellent. I'm Emily Fabiano. I'm with the Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation, and I'll turn it over to Julia.
And I'm Julia Poling. I'm also with the Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation, and I'm on the call with Emily today, so I can take any feedback you all share with us back to our project team so we can continue to make the program better.
Excellent. Thank you. And Julia leads all of our communications and events planning for the office and helps with the Lieutenant Governor's Office events and communications as well. So we hope to continue the conversation with you all about, once we can get back on the road, potentially visiting and making sure that we're engaged together with events that are going on and things like that. So with that, Tiffany and Laura, should I go ahead and start my presentation?
Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead and share.
Thank you. Bear with me. I am, like everybody else, still working through the kinks of presenting remotely. Can everybody see my screen? Presentation in full screen? Great. Well, thank you so much to Dan and Tiffany and Laura for the invitation to be with you today. I'm excited to speak with you and excited to be close by. I recently moved to the Cincinnati area, so excited to be close to home here. So as I mentioned before, I'm Emily Fabiano. I am the Director of Strategy and Operations in the Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation. We are an office of the governor led by Lieutenant Governor Husted, and our focus is on coordinating across state government to make sure that our education and training programs are preparing people for jobs that are in high demand in our economy and that pay quality wages. So that's what we do at a high level. And today specifically, I will be talking about TechCred, which is one of several programs that we have engagement in that are a priority for the administration. But we're really excited to share a little bit more about this program. I'm excited to know that the Chamber has been promoting it for about a year now. And I mentioned this to the Chamber team, but would love for this to be a discussion rather than just me presenting the whole time. If you have questions, please feel free to jump in. I'd be happy to answer them as we go along. So I want to provide a little bit of quick context as to the creation of the TechCred program. So you can see a little bit about the TechCred program on the screen here, but the context behind this is TechCred really is something that the governor and lieutenant governor have been wanting to do and excited about even prior to entering office. So it's something that we've heard a lot about from employers specifically, that the skills needs are changing so quickly these days that it can be difficult to find people with the skills that are needed by employers. And not only is that the case, and you often hear about that referred to as the skills gap, we also have new technologies that are being introduced in every industry and at an increasing rate that continue to change the skills that are needed from our employees. So we know that that's a need, and TechCred is a program that we developed in response to that need to help employees continue to learn the skills that they need to succeed in the workplace. So just to kind of emphasize that, one of the stats that I've shared in presentations before, I think is pretty eye-opening. McKinsey released a study in 2017 that estimated that as many as 375 million workers, or 14% of the global workforce, would need to switch occupations or acquire new skills by 2030 because of automation and artificial intelligence. So that kind of sets the backdrop for this program. What's unique about it is that it's called TechCred, but it is not limited to what you might consider the IT industry. It's open to all industries because we know that all industries have technology needs. So about the program itself, as you know, TechCred helps Ohioans to learn new technology skills, and it helps employers to build a stronger workforce with the skills that are needed to compete in that technology-infused economy. And I will get more into the details about the trainings themselves, but all of our trainings can be completed in less than a year, and many of them are offered online, and increasingly so during the pandemic. So we are currently in the middle of our 7th application period, which started on Monday the 4th and closes on Friday, January 29th. So I wanted to highlight that up front. Our website is linked throughout this presentation. It's techcred.ohio.gov. If you haven't been there, I would encourage you to check it out. And a lot of the information I'll be sharing today is available on the website as well. So I want to talk a little bit about our success to date with this program. We're really proud of the results that we've been able to achieve so far. We had an initial goal of funding 10,000 credentials in the first year of the program. And when we were setting out to design the program, we felt like that was a very ambitious goal, but I'm proud to say that we actually surpassed that goal within the first year of the program. We had the goal, we launched the program in October of 2019. So our goal was to fund 10,000 by October 2020, and I believe we got to about 12,000 by September, if I remember correctly. So the demand for this program is strong, and that's something we're really proud of. It also increased during the pandemic, which is something we were interested to see how the pandemic would affect the demand from employers for this program. But we were interested to see that those numbers were actually increasing as a result. So to date, we have had 966 unique Ohio employers who have been awarded nearly $16 million to help upskill their employees. We've funded just over 15,000 credentials, and that's a number we're really proud of as well. And one thing that I want to highlight that I think is a cool aspect of this program is that we've had 326 employers who have received awards in multiple rounds, which means that they're repeat customers. And that's something that we're proud of about this program, is we designed it with employer feedback in mind to be employer driven, and to be responsive to your needs. And we have received really good feedback to date from the employer community that this is a relatively easy program to interact with, that our website is user-friendly, et cetera. So we continue to see employers coming back multiple times to use this program, and we view that as a very good thing. So getting started with TechCred, I want to go over the process in a little bit of detail. So we want it to be as simple as possible. And the way it works is, if you are an employer with an upskilling need, you can identify the skills that you need that are technology focused and the employees that you would like to upskill. Could be one employee, it could be multiple employees. And then you partner with a credential provider. The provider could be a local community college, it could be a university like Miami, it could be a private training provider, whoever can best meet your needs, and apply for TechCred through our website. So when you apply for TechCred, what you're doing is applying as a pre-approval, basically telling us the first two steps, who you're partnering with to provide the credential, who you're providing the credential to, and what skills you are building within your employees. We will pre-approve that, which basically means we set aside the amount of money that your company will be awarded so that we can do the reimbursement process. Once you are pre-approved for TechCred, you enroll the employees in the program. They complete in less than a year. And then once the employees have completed, you upload the proof of credential completion to our website. And once we receive and confirm that, we reimburse you up to $2,000 per credential. I'm going to pause there quickly. Are there any questions that I can help clarify on the process for TechCred? Okay.
Sorry, it took me a while to get to my unmute. But how long does the process take for reimbursement?
We ask that employers submit for reimbursement within, I believe it's 6 weeks of the completion of the credential. And then I think reimbursement is pretty quick after that. I don't know what our average turnaround time is, but I can look into that and get back to the group. Julia, do you know that number off the top?
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, we can get back to you on that. That's a great question.
I was just curious.
Thank you. I want to take a minute here to highlight some changes that we've made to the program since we launched it in October of 2019. Obviously, we have a lot of challenges that we're all facing, but particularly with the employer community, we want to be responsive to the changing needs that and ways that we can be supportive through this program during the pandemic. So a couple of ways that we've changed the program in response. First, we used to require that employers list all the employee names upfront when they apply, the names of the employees that they want to upskill. But we've actually changed that requirement, and now we only require employers to identify the number of people that they are going to be upskilling. And then once they're applying for reimbursement, that's when they can specify the names of the employees who earn the credentials. The reason we did that is we wanted to provide some flexibility up front. If there are potential staffing changes, if you have employees who are in the interview pipeline even, they can be, as long as they're employed with your company when they've completed the credential, they can benefit from the program. So we wanted to provide that flexibility in case you don't know upfront who is going to be earning those credentials, and you can specify that on the back end when you request reimbursement. We also made it possible for employees to earn multiple credentials during each application period. What we found is that a lot of employers are investing in credentials that are stackable or that have multiple components to them. So if it's a 3-part credential, but it can be completed in less than a year, and you want to apply for those 2 or 3 credentials even during an application period, that is now an option that's available to you. And then finally, as a direct result of the pandemic, we are requesting now that employers who apply will have to verify that they are using a provider, an education or training provider, that is either offering their training fully online or operating in compliance with the Department of Health and CDC recommendations to make sure that it's a safe, from a public health standpoint, work environment or learning environment rather for the employees. I want to also emphasize something that I think is really important part of this program, which is the idea that all employers of all sizes can participate and benefit from the program. So it's actually written into the language in the bill that created TechCred that we have equal amounts of funding, 3 buckets of funding for 3 sizes of businesses. So those sizes are small, medium, and large. And you can see the classifications on the screen here. But small, the way it's defined by the Development Services Agency is between 1 and 50 employees. Medium is 51 to 200, and large is more than 200 employees. So equal funding buckets, equal chance for employers of all sizes to benefit from this program. And actually what we've seen is that because large employers often apply to have more employees upskilled in each round, because they have more employees in general, the money goes faster in the large employer bucket. So it's actually a great opportunity for small and medium employers because there's more funding available for them because they tend to upskill fewer employees at once.
Emily, I have another question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there any limitation as to how long the employee has to have been with the employer to qualify? Can this be used for new employees to onboard them?
That's a great question, Dan. It can be used, and that's an encouraged use. We want to make sure that it's available to prospective employees who are just joining as part of the onboarding process.
My other question is, does the employee who is being up-trained, do they have to change positions or just increase their skills?
That's another great question. We, as part of the application process, we asked about whether the employer is willing to make a pledged wage increase. We know that these skills are providing value for both the employee and the employer. So if there is an opportunity to provide that wage increase, that's something we encourage and use as part of the scoring criteria. So when we are low on funds, we score competitively based on a few factors, and wage increase is one of them. So are employers required to change the employee's position or provide them with a wage increase? No, they are not required, but they are encouraged to do so, and that can help them compete for funds when funding is limited.
Thank you.
Sure. Great questions. Okay, so I want to take a minute because we talk a lot about credentials in the education and workforce world, and I think it's important to define the term credential and then 2 terms that fall within it that in my view sound very similar and can be difficult to distinguish, and those are certificate and certification. So I want to take a minute to define these. There's also a video on our website that our team put together. I think it does a really good job of concisely summarizing what these terms mean. But the term credential is really an umbrella term that includes certificate and certification. And I'm reading the definition here because I think the team summarized it well. But a certificate is earned by an individual who successfully completes a training, a course, or a series of courses. So an example of this might be a robotics course or set of courses at a community college as one example. The certification is earned by individuals who pass a standardized assessment. And the standardized assessment is the key differentiator here that recognizes that person's knowledge, skill, and competency in a particular specialty. So if we're going with the robotics example, an example of a certification would be the AWS Robotic Arc Welding Operator and Technician certification. So that is showing that you have specific skills that are valued, across the industry with that certification that shows that you have demonstrated those skills. So that is the distinction between a certificate, a certification, and they both fall within that umbrella term, which we call credentials. So a lot of words that sound similar. Hopefully that helps clarify the difference, but that video on our website does a really good job of elaborating as well. In terms of credential eligibility, there are 3 main factors that make a credential eligible for funding under this program. The first is industry recognized, which basically just means that the credential has value for multiple employers within the industry, and it's not specific to one employer. The technology focused component, I would say, is the broadest component intentionally, because like I said earlier, we know that technology is changing all industries. So as long as you within your application, describe how the technology or how the credential itself is focused on technology. That helps us to determine how that fits within the scope of the program. And then finally, short term. Short term, the way we define it is that the credential can be completed in less than a year, which is the equivalent in academic terms of 900 clock hours or 30 credit hours. And that's very specific information. It's all available on the website, so don't worry about writing it down or anything. But those are the three main components that make a credential eligible for this program. Another interesting aspect of this program is that we allow employers to drive the credentials that are approved on the list. We have hundreds of credentials after, now that we're in our 7th round, we've had many employers apply, we've had many credentials be approved. So chances are increasing that if you are looking for a relatively common credential, that it's approved through our website. So when you go to apply, you can look at the list of credentials that are approved. If you don't see the credential that you're looking for on there, we encourage employers to submit that credential to have it approved through the process when they apply. So basically, the process for that is if you don't see the credential that you're looking for on our list, you can specify that in your application and say that you're looking to add a new credential. And to do that, you need to provide the name of the credential, whether it's a certificate or a certification. And we do provide the definitions in the application too, so you have reference. And then the link to the website or an uploaded syllabus or brochure. And what that does is it helps us to do the research on the back end as to whether that credential is technology focused, the length of the credential, and whether it's industry recognized, as we talked about. So we ask for evidence of those 3 criteria as well in that submission process. And the way it works is if you submit a new credential to be approved, we have a panel of experts from industry and education who meet every time we have a TechCred round. We always have new credentials that are being requested. So we have a panel who will review those credentials based on the information that you provide to determine whether or not they qualify. That panel makes a recommendation to the Chancellor, Randy Gardner, Chancellor of Higher Education, and he is the ultimate person who approves the credentials to be funded through TechCred. So that is the process for adding a credential to the list. I would say if you're going to add a credential or request that a credential be added to the list, we ask that you be as specific as possible to help us make sure that we have evidence that it meets the 3 main criteria. In terms of award amounts for the TechCred program, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but we will reimburse up to $2,000 per credential, up to $30,000 per employer in each funding round. So basically what that means is, you can apply for up to 15 credentials per round at a maximum of $2,000 per credential. That could even be more credentials if you're only requesting, $1,000 in reimbursement. And what is exciting about this is if you have success with the program, if you want to come back and apply in a future round, you can do that. So not only can you apply to have multiple credentials earned by an employee within each funding round, you can also come back and apply multiple times to have credentials funded for your employees. The reimbursement process is as simple and as streamlined as possible. The way to initiate reimbursement is to go on the online portal. It's the same as the application. And to basically, as soon as your employees complete the credential, you will be asked to submit the following information, which includes proof of credential completion, like a certificate of completion or something along those lines, invoices so that we can verify the costs that you incurred as the employer, and proof of payment, and then information about the credential earner. This is what we talked about before. We don't require all that information up front. We do require it on the back end so we can track the wage increases and the participants who have benefited from this program. So that is the general process. I believe I'm getting to the end of my presentation here. So as a reminder, the website is techcred.ohio.gov. You can find all the information that I shared today there, as well as more information, more specifics about the process. The current application, as I mentioned before, is open January 4th through the 29th. So please make sure to check it out. Generally, we usually operate on an every other month schedule or cadence where, we take 1 month where it's a full application period. The next month is the time in which we review the applications and the credentials. And then generally we open another application period the month after. Sometimes we change that a little bit. For example, we did not hold an application in December because of the holidays, but that's generally the cadence that we use. And then to find more information, I included our email addresses on here. If you want to learn more specifically or have a question about TechCred, that first email address is a great contact that goes to our TechCred team directly. The second one is our team within the Office of Workforce Transformation if you have more general questions. So those are the best ways to get a hold of us. I also want to take a quick minute to share another program that is a sister program of TechCred. It's very similar in nature, but it's called the Individual Micro-Credential Assistance Program, or Imap. And the distinction with Imap is that it is targeted toward individuals who are either unemployed or low income or both. And the funding flows actually through the training providers. So I wanted to mention it to you because I know we have Miami University on the line, and also it's something that can benefit your company, although you're not applying for funding directly. We do have people who are earning the same credentials that are approved through TechCred through this Imap program, and they are seeking employment opportunities in those fields. So that's certainly something we can connect you with if you're interested. The website is imap.development.ohio.gov. And on the website, there's a list of our 11 training providers that have been approved to offer these trainings to individuals. So if you see a training provider on there that you partner with, it's a great opportunity to connect with emerging talent who are learning the skills that you may need for your workforce and continuing to grow your business. So that concludes the presentation. I hope that the details were helpful in kind of clarifying how the program works and how to get engaged. But at this point, if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions about TechCred, Imap, or in general, have a discussion about workforce needs. So thank you. And Dan, if it's okay with you, I guess we'll open it to questions.
Yes, I was actually just putting in the chat too. Could you put the website address that you just told us in the chat? So we have.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay. So I put the Imap website in the chat, and
Great.
then I will also add TechCred. Has anyone had the opportunity to take advantage of the TechCred program? Have you applied and received funding? If so, I'd love to hear about your experience or any questions that you have.
With me being new to all this, obviously I've not heard of it, but it sounds like a pretty cool program. I'm assuming that the providers on both of the things, the TechCred and the Imap, are all in the website.
Yes.
Okay. And then when you talked about multiple credentials, what would be an example of that maybe somebody has done in the past?
Oh, that's a great question. Usually with multiple credentials, like within an application round, sometimes those credentials have multiple parts to them. So I'll use this as an example, but So I think one example might be the ASE, which is an automotive credential. I believe it stands for American Service Excellence, or something along those lines. There are different types of ASE credentials, and sometimes, often, employers will couple multiple credentials together to help employees kind of round out their skills within that profession. So those are, I don't know if that's specifically is a good example, but those are the types of credentials where there are multiple varieties that benefit people to earn more than one. And that is now possible through the program.
Okay, I'm excited to look through it. I really am.
Great. And Christina, to answer your question about the list of providers. So there are two separate websites that are in the chat. Imap, you can see the 11 providers who are approved and enrolling people in these programs today. And then on TechCred, we have the list of approved credentials. I mentioned there are hundreds of approved credentials on there. You can sort them by certificate or certification. And you can also sort by the industry or the type of credential that they are. When you do that, you not only see the credential name, but the providers that offer it. So, you know, one certain credential could be offered by multiple colleges, maybe universities or private training providers. And you can see that information on the website.
Okay, I'm gonna assume that Miami Hamilton is probably a main provider, since I think we had them on the line, I guess, or they were here. I'm alumni, just go Pack Tech.
Yes, I do not work in that department, but I am definitely going to check. We are not on the IMAP for sure, but we need to be involved in this. That's why I'm here.
Right. I mean, being from the area, I just thought, geez, you know, if we've got the younger people we're bringing in and as things are changing, like Emily talked about, you know, I just think that's great to keep it local. And again, like I said, maybe I'm biased because I'm alumni, but still. Okay,
Yes,
great. I'm
Definitely.
excited. I think this is an awesome program, both of them.
Thank you. And Jackie, I don't know off the top of my head whether Miami is on that list, but I think one of the cool things about this program is that employers decide who can provide that credential or who is the best suited in their area or even online to provide that credential to their business. So it's a great opportunity for providers like Miami to engage their existing or even new employer partners to help, you know, expand upon the programs that you have in existence or are creating to respond to that business need. So a lot of the promotion for this program actually comes from providers who are learning about it. We do a lot of webinars through our partnership with the Department of Higher Education so that colleges and universities and training providers know about the program and can market it to employers as a way to engage in their upskilling and reskilling programs.
Yes,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I recently dropped off some information to the chamber about our micro-credential program. So I will follow up on that to see what we could do. And it sounds to me like the best thing to do is to work with employers to see what they need, because we may not always know exactly, like you said, with these rapid changes and now with COVID, so much has changed.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the benefits of the micro-credential model is that it can be a little more responsive, and because of the short-term nature of it, it doesn't take as long to change as a 4-year program or, you know, a 2-year program. So we see a lot of success as a result of this program and in general, where businesses and education providers can come together and share those needs and be, you know, responding to those needs in real time. So that's a great point, Jackie.
Yes.
Emily, thanks for the link, because while you were talking, I just sent it to Shaman and Curtis at Miami, and also to see if we could tie it in with the CHIPS program. And we are very aware of the micro-credentials programs. As a matter of fact, one of those programs was developed specifically for the city of Hamilton for customer service training. So we're trying to get that launched and stuff this year. But
yes, and I've heard a lot about that from Doug Edwards. I think you worked with on that.
Great, glad to hear it.
So Emily, it sounds like TechCred, you know, like I said, we've promoted it and everything, but I want to thank you for this presentation because I learned a lot of things that I think I knew, but didn't really sink in. So this,
Good.
and I never really thought about this being used for new employees that you could be bringing on board for, specific training. That's somehow that piece I missed that piece. I think that's really incredible opportunity that I don't think employers are aware of either. I think they've just thought about it as existing employees. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Dan, that's a really good point, and I would agree with that. I think, we designed the program with that in mind, but I think that it really caught on as an opportunity for existing employees, but we didn't see as many employers at first utilizing this for, prospective or new employees. So that's something we're trying to get the message out about. But please feel free to include that in your marketing materials and let people know that that is an opportunity. And the one change that we made that allows employers to specify the names upon reimbursement instead of upfront is meant to provide additional flexibility in case you are, for example, interviewing a couple of candidates and that you're going to be filling the position, but during the application window, you're still kind of in that process. That's to allow some flexibility for upskilling people who are new to the company.
This might seem like a strange question, but are there any differences for the funding and the application, whether it is a for-profit or nonprofit employer?
I don't believe there are differences in the application. The TechCred program is open to any employer who employs W-2 employees. So we've had schools participate, we've had nonprofit organizations participate, and we would encourage everybody to look into it. As long as you employ W-2 employees, you can participate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Emily, on the funding that you talked about, your 3 buckets, is that just first come, first serve, without lack of better words?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've had a steady flow of demand. We have a set funding amount. And so far, as long as the credentials have qualified and the employer's in good standing, with the state, et cetera, we generally will award the application. But where the scoring criteria come in are when the money becomes limited. So for example, in that large business bucket, as I mentioned before, we're seeing a lot of large businesses upskill multiple people, and it takes fewer businesses to spend that money because some of them are upskilling 15 employees versus, a couple here and there. So we are starting to be more limited in the large employer bucket, and that's when it gets really competitive in terms of wage increases and things like that. But it's still a relatively new program, and we're just now getting to that point. So that's when it becomes more competitive. But otherwise, we'll award applications as long as the credential meets the criteria that we outlined in this presentation and on the website.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
No.
Emily, one more thing there. So there's a deadline for this, correct?
Yes, this current application closes on January 29th, which is a Friday.
So Tiffany, I'm thinking we might want to put this out on our e-newsletter with a link. I know we've done that before, especially when the funding cycle is about to end. But I would think there's a lot. We must have a lot of members that could take advantage of this that have just never thought of it. Like I said, I was aware, but there were specific opportunities here that I never really understood before.
Yeah, and we would be happy to help if you are looking for information, or we've got some marketing materials too to help get that word out. But I think that's a great point. And one of the things that we try to continue to emphasize is that this is open to all industries. So hopefully this is something that all of your members can consider and potentially benefit from.
Emily, I have one last question. I ask a lot of questions, sorry.
They're good questions.
Could this be utilized, or has this been utilized in specific industries like food service and restaurants and things like that? I know they've had a really challenging year, but as they come back to work, and there are different categories of certification in food service. So whether you're just washing lettuce or you're actually part of the chef's team, so would something like that qualify as a potential credential?
That's a great question. And the answer is if it's an introduction of technology into the industry that requires new skills, it would likely qualify. So if there's a new, point of sale system, for
Right.
example, that employees need to learn as a result of the changes in the industry, that is something that would be more likely to qualify than like a food handling certificate or certification. Just because it's got that technology focus to it. So we have seen a variety of different credentials. I don't have the list of credentials within that industry in front of me, but the general buckets that we have on our website of credentials are pretty broad. We have business technology, healthcare technology, IoT or Internet of Things, and cybersecurity, military and smart transportation, construction, IT, manufacturing, and robotics and automation. So those are the general kind of big buckets, but there's also kind of another category that is all encompassing for credentials that might fall outside of the categories I mentioned.
Restaurants, for instance, if they were upgrading their system, which I know some of them are looking at that since COVID, more automated system for order taking and takeout orders and curbside pickup and all that type of thing. There are new systems that are coming out to handle those needs. So that's something that could potentially qualify because the staff would have to learn that automated system in order to efficiently fill those orders.
Yes, that's one great example. And I want to reemphasize too that our panel of people who approve credentials look very deeply, especially if it's a credential that they're on the fence about whether it has a technology focus or not. So I want to encourage employers, if you are applying for a credential, for example, that is new, I would encourage you to be as specific as possible about the types of technologies and the way that it's changing the workplace, just so that it is easier for the panel to see that that's it qualifies under our requirements.
Do we have any questions from the Facebook crowd, Tiffany?
Oh,
Emily, I do have one last question, I think, for you, and I apologize if this sounds like a dumb question, but with doing this through the Hamilton Chamber, my Hamilton store obviously is part of this chamber. Now, is this something that goes outside of that? Like if I wanted to utilize it for, say, my Westchester store location or my Sharonville store location, it's open across the board?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Not a dumb question at all.
I think I'm like Dan, I ask a lot of questions. You guys might get tired of hearing from me.
Not at all. They've been great questions. Thank you.
So yeah, this is a statewide program, correct, Emily?
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you. All right.
Well, Emily, that looks like that might be the end of our questions. Anybody else have any last ideas, comments, thoughts for Emily? Nope.
No, I just want to say, Emily, this has really been informative. Like I said, I've been aware of this program, but I learned a lot today. So, of details I really never thought of. And the flexibility of the program, I think, is what people don't realize.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And if you do have questions, any of you, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me or to Julia directly, or you can email the contact that I put on the slides to get directly to our TechCred team. we are always looking for questions, feedback, etc. If you have had success or have not had success with TechCred, we want to hear about it. We actually go through a strategic planning process between each round of TechCred to take into account any feedback that we're getting from businesses to continue to make it streamlined and easy, so we're serving your needs as best we can. So I mean that when I say it. If you have feedback and questions, let us know, because that's how it helps us improve the program. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it, and happy to serve as a resource to you moving forward.
I think that you did such a good job that you may get invited back in the future. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Definitely. And Emily, I'll be touching base with you afterwards. If you and Julia can get us some information for Tiffany and I to put out, we will definitely be getting that out to the membership and sharing as much as possible. We'll be back on January 28th with another coffee and conversation at 9 a.m. We will have Matt Appenzeller, who's the Executive Director of the Southern Ohio Chamber Alliance, and some of the various benefit providers. So for chamber members to find out how to utilize their membership a little bit better, we will be sharing some information that day. So we will be seeing you all back in a couple weeks.
Awesome.
Thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.